Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome again to the Van Buren Variety Show. And the title is just what it says, Variety. So each week I have a very interesting guest with a very great topic. Might be a profession, might be a hobby, could be a how-to segment or even some entertainment. So hence the word variety. I am Bob Van Buren, your host, and I'm here every week, once a week, to have the guest on. So not only can you learn something, but me too. And I have had some very, very great and interesting guests so far, and tonight is no exception. And I know that you'll all appreciate it too. I hope you've all had a great week so far. I have, and I have a personal story I want to share with all of you. For almost, well, over a year now, maybe 2 years, I have hardly no good sleep pattern. It's been go to sleep, wake up an hour and a half later. Go back to sleep, wake up an hour and a half later. It just kept going on. I could never stay asleep. Long story short, I went to a sleep study, and I have apnea, sleep apnea. In case you don't know what that is, that's when you actually stop breathing during the night. Yeah, and that's what's waking you up. Your body is waking you up, but it just makes for a very, very miserable sleep. So long story short, I now have a mask that I have to wear, a CPAP, if you will, at night. And so I tell you this story. It's not has nothing to do with the topic we're going to talk about. Consider this a public service announcement. If you are not sleeping good at night, and if you feel that you are either snoring very loudly or you're stopping breathing, get it taken care of, because not having sleep can take a toll on your overall health, and it has mine. But to be able to go to bed and go to sleep for 6, even 7 hours straight without getting up is absolutely the best rest I could ever have. So before I bring my guest on, in case you're thinking, oh, a CPAP, I can't wear that. I thought that too. I'm going to give you a quick demonstration right now, and I'll go and give you a hint. I do look like Darth Vader, okay? So here we go. Give me a few minutes.
Hey, it looks terrible, but nobody has to look at me while I'm doing this. Oh, that's a little tangled there. So, yeah, it helps you breathe through your nose, and if you're a mouth breather like me, it covers your nose and your mouth. So, look, it looks kind of funky, I know, but it helps me sleep. I don't care how it looks. So, this is my CPAP.
So anyway, again, as funny as that looks, on a serious note, if you are having trouble sleeping, it's worth going to the doctor and getting a sleep study and getting a CPAP, because I guarantee you will thank yourself. And if you're married, have a partner, they will thank you too for not having to hear you snore all night long. So anyway, there's my PSA. Now let's get back to our topic now. What would you say to this, especially those of you out there that like a mystery? For example, the mysteries of the paranormal, mysteries of aliens, or the mysteries of cryptids and Bigfoot. Then how about this mystery for size, okay? A little closer to home. What is a mystery, or what would you say for someone who only made $20,000 a year, okay? Now they make $1 million a year, legally. Nothing illegal or under the table about it. Well, if you're interested, let's bring my next guest on, and she will tell you all about it, and I'm going to learn a lot from her as well. So let me bring my guest on tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce you to Fran Tabor. She's going to talk about her success stories, even in the middle of trials and tribulations, and even some books she's written about the subject. So, Miss Tabor, welcome to the Van Buren Variety Show.
Hi, thank you very much. And I'm really looking forward to talking with everyone. And just because of your intro, I'm going to start my beginning thing a little bit. One correction. I was talking about gross income. Our first 2 years, we averaged gross income of $20,000, and then we moved up to $1 million gross income. So no, I do not personally make a million a year. He would probably spoil me, but I'm
Okay.
willing to be spoiled.
Nothing
But
wrong
the
with
reason,
that.
but the reason we're going to change is one of the most important assets anyone has, whether they're going into business or going into exploring the jungles or just wanting to visit children, their grandchildren, or watch the children grow. The single most important asset anybody has is their own body. And if we don't take care of ourselves, it would be like having somebody hand you the world's most beautiful sports car and you never change the oil, always use the cheapest gas, and
Hmm. Yep.
your idea of maintenance is cleaning up the windshield. That
Hmm.
sports car pretty soon is not going to be worth any more than the worst beater that you could find in the junkyard. Our bodies are the same way. And I learned that the hard way, that I took my body for granted.
Me too.
And I have always been inclined to take power naps in the afternoon for 10, 15 minutes. That's all it would take and make a huge difference. Starting about year 2003, all of a sudden, like those afternoon power naps went to an hour, 2 hours. Pretty soon, I had a cot in my office. You can get away with that when you own the joint.
That's, I like that.
And so I was doing power naps in the morning and power naps in the afternoon. And I felt good. I was always needing more energy. So I found myself snacking more and more. And I didn't have the physical ambition to have as much exercise. And my weight went from about 140 to something a little above 200. We're not going to talk too much because at 5'2", you start approaching 200, and start looking like a walking beach ball.
Hmm. Hmm.
This I am not a beach ball personality, but I was. Was on a very low thyroid dose, and I had switched doctors, and I was just getting refills, and my regular GP said, Fran, I am the doctor that first prescribed the thyroid had retired. And my GP said, I will not renew that prescription for you if you don't come in for a full visit. I feel great. I'm doing a little more napping, but I feel great. He made me come in. Everybody who's on thyroid should every day, I learned from my GP, be feeling their neck for any nodules, because everybody who takes thyroid medication, there is a above average chance they may develop thyroid cancer. Caught
Oh, wow.
early, thyroid cancer is extremely curable. 99% of it is of a variety that will never go to other parts of your body. If you're going to get cancer, like one doctor told me, that is the cancer to get. Well, he asked me, well, how long have you had this lump? And I go, what lump? He said,
Yeah.
you were told to feel for lumps? And I go, well, there are other parts of my body I've been told to. Nobody told me to feel my neck.
Yeah. If anyone tells you, how would you know? You know?
Right. And it never occurred to me because, I mean, it's kind of boring going, oh, yes, I got a neck here. I can feel it. Who would? So he ended up sending me to the specialist. The specialist would not do any operations till they finally got a lab report back that said, yes, this is definitely cancer, because he did not believe in excess operations. It turned out that it was a miracle I was functioning at all at that time period, that I only had a few hours a day that I could actually function. And I was spending those few hours writing more than doing my business. I'm very lucky at that point in time.
That's
I
awesome.
had, well, 2007, I had 2 dozen employees. 2007 was a good money year for Montana. And so January 2008, I had the operation. He was really shocked when he got into it. He said thyroidectomies were one of his favorite operations. You go in, you pop it out. He said generally 30 minutes tops. He could not believe it. I had a problem like no other he had seen. He told me that I had a must have had a disease called Hashimoto's, which I looked up after the fact and discovered,
Mm-hmm.
yep, I definitely had Hashimoto's, but at least since I was 8 years old. It explained a lot of things that didn't make sense before. Nice to have an excuse for the dumb times in your life. But he said the only solid part was the cancer. The thyroid itself had dissolved into a slimy mess, and it took him over 2 hours to suck out all the slime. I woke up. I
Mm.
felt like a 60-pound pack had been taken off my back, recovering from surgery, and I felt better than I had in a very, very long time.
That's awesome. That's a good
If
success story.
I had gone to the doctor when I first started sleeping more, way back when, I would not have made some of the really dumb mistakes I made in the ensuing years. I failed to take care of my body,
It's very, very,
and
very,
I felt
very
like I had more
important.
energy and everything.
Sure.
And so I thought, wow, I'm really doing better. This is more like what I used to be. A friend of mine videoed me taking a nap, and I said, "You dubbed in that sound." And he said, "No, I didn't." I said, "That sounds like a drunken sailor sleeping. I am a lady. There is no way that could be me." And my sister and my brothers, my parents, "Oh no, normally you're louder." I
Oh
am
my.
not. I never heard me. So then I had the sleep study. Only I have one correction. You do not look like Darth Vader. When we put those things on,
Mm-hmm.
we are jet pilots.
Oh, okay. I'll remember
Have,
that. Top
have
Gun.
you ever seen Tom Cruise in Top Gun? He
Yep.
looks just like that.
Maverick. Yeah.
Yes, we are jet pilots of the sky. And so,
Oh.
yes, the first thing you have to do is if you find yourself not being rested, don't spend $1,000 on a new mattress. Get a sleep study, because I think that this uh, sleep apnea and the thyroid together, one made the other one worse. It was just one of these vicious cycle things. Any sign like that, your loved one tells you that you are sleeping a little more, or your loved one says you're sleeping a lot less. Someone says your coloring is wrong. Do not pretend, say, "Oh my goodness, I don't want to be a hypochondriac." Just say, "Okay, I'm going to get an examination because you are no better than what you can function." And if you are going to be a business owner, it is not just you and it's not just your family. You are responsible for everybody who works for you. You are
Absolutely.
responsible for everyone who's going to be your customer. You are responsible for everyone that you buy your supplies from. You have a world of responsibility, and if you don't take care of yourself, you are betraying your family, you're betraying your customers, you're betraying your employees, you're betraying your suppliers. And Uncle Sam might even claim that you're betraying the IRS, but we won't go there.
No, that's right. Oh, speaking of Uncle Sam and the IRS, but they're big businesses. Let's talk about the small businesses. Talk
Yes.
about your small business. How did you start? I kind of tell how you can you kind of brief or
Okay.
how you got from the ground up.
Okay. Well, first of all, you have to be willing to start at the ground. My former mother in law was shocked that I was willing to start at the ground, that we had had a 3 bedroom home and a job. We ended up selling everything, put money on a down payment for a piece of property where we could legally have a home business, because we figured that that way we would be able to put all of our energy into one structure.
Mm-hmm.
And political plug here, communities with a lot of home based businesses have way less crime and juvenile delinquency. Less crime because you don't have vast neighborhoods where there's nobody there.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if everybody drives away to go to their job, then during the day you have a lot of empty homes that are like saying, "Hey, thieves, come here. No one's going to bother you."
That's true. I didn't thought of it that
Or
way.
at night when the businesses are abandoned, again, same message to thieves. You
Mm-hmm.
have a
For
home
sure.
based business, there's almost always going to be somebody there.
Someone's there. Mm-hmm.
A teenager comes home from school, he's going to see mom and dad working. It's not go to work this mysterious place where there's always more money. He sees the work involved with work. And if he sits around too much, you can, I don't care what the business is, some way or another, mom and dad are going to find a way to put that kid to work. It's the modern
Absolutely.
version of the family farm. Home based businesses are one of the best things you can do for reducing crime and having a stable, wonderful community, and it is good for family life.
And that kind of brings
But,
up to my next question. I'm sorry, did you have something else to
mhm.
say?
No,
My
go
next,
on.
well, you're talking about small business and kind of how important it is and work ethic, basically. I
Hmm.
have a question for you. How does small businesses have a larger synergistic effect on a community's economic health than a big business?
That is a very, very good question. I like it. And okay, I'm going to put be a shameless plug in this book. I had a whole chapter
I'll bring
devoted.
it up. Let's see.
Yeah, shush is a secret.
There it is. That's a book,
Yes.
y'all, that Fran has written. So, yeah, Fran, tell us about your book.
Okay. Um, what it is that there really is no secret to how to compete against Walmart and the internet.
Okay.
Because the real secret is, are you willing to continuously learn? The world we live in changes continuously. There is nothing new about it.
You're right.
Way
Hmm.
back when it was all manpower, somebody came along and figured out a way to harness the horse. That changed things. People learned to have sails to go sailing across the ocean for their trading. That changed things. The automobile really changed things. Mass communication changed things. But what's involved isn't the real thing is that you do have to continuously be willing to learn. If you're not willing
Hmm.
to learn, um, you're not going to make it. In fact, the first chapter of the book is Fletchers and Dodo Birds. Fletcher is the town arrow maker. Very
Okay.
obvious why in medieval times the town Fletcher was important. What a lot of people don't realize is Fletchers today, specialty arrow makers today, make a lot more money than they did back in medieval days.
Oh, okay.
Because
Mm,
if you're an archery enthusiast, you're not going to go to Walmart, you're going to go to a specialist. And
true.
that's what modern Fletcher has to also learn: modern ways of making things, modern machining methods, modern advertising methods, how to use the internet, how to set up a store so people can practice shooting their arrows.
Hmm.
But you're either a Fletcher or you're a dodo bird. That never changed when hungry sailors started landing on their island.
Good
And
advice.
and the fact that the world is continuously changing, there's always people saying we have to plan this community. But the bad thing about planning a community is that you think in terms of what you already know. You think in terms of what you can project in the future. You can project a lot of times more people. But in 1900, nobody could project that people who could not afford a chauffeur would be owning cars because cars were too complicated to drive.
Hmm.
Well,
Hmm.
very quickly they got simpler. And then they standard started all having automatic shifts, and somebody like me can drive now easily
Yep.
without going to church. And modern cars are easier to drive than what they were 10 years ago.
For sure.
Modern communities are like that. You do not know what kind of businesses are going to be needed. And one type of business that's going to be very important for the community and almost no city planner even thinks about is the repairman. Being in the vacuum
That's
business,
true.
the example I used is, imagine two people in two different communities. Both of them have an inexpensive $100 vacuum. One, and neither one of them knows how to fix it. They just go, okay, well, I've tried all the obvious things that won't go on. One goes down to Walmart and buys another $100 vacuum. Does the one he buy be the best one for his situation? Well, he can look up on the internet and find out what other people like. Other people's homes are not his home. Maybe it is,
Hmm.
maybe it isn't, but he buys it. And when you buy something in Walmart, The little bit of money paid the person working there stays there, your share of that. A
Mm-hmm.
little bit of the property taxes stay there, your tiny share of that. But over 90% of that money is just gone. So there's a guy the next day, $100 poorer, and his community has seen his hard earned wages, $90 to $95 worth, leave.
It's just gone. Yeah.
Now, compare that to a man that has a vacuum repair shop. He takes his vacuum to the vacuum repair shop. It costs him $50 to get it fixed. He goes home with $50 in his pocket. He's greeted by his wife saying, I want to do some more gardening. Let's go to the farmer's market. I hear they have some great plants there. They go to the farmer's market. They buy some plants. On the way home, they pick up some milk. The next morning, their kid has milk for his cereal. The guy has enough change left over to give him lunch money. He has enough change left over so that he could have a cup of coffee on the way to work. His wife is happy that she has her new plants. And guess what? 90 to $95 of that money has stayed in the community to
It's
be
in the community.
recycled in the community.
Education, everything.
Right.
That's awesome.
Let 10 to $5 has gone out for supplies or whatever. A small business that responds to the immediate needs of his neighbors is always looking for ways to respond to his neighbors. Almost all of what they take in stays in the community, and it saves the other people money.
That's
Would
awesome.
you rather be that man who's $100 poor and with a wife he has to say, I'm sorry, we can't buy the plants? Or the guy whose wife is all happy putting the plants in her garden, the kid is happy, he has lunch money and milk in his cereal, and he's happy.
That's great. Oh, I love success stories like that. I mean, really, we need to invest more with should I say, the mom and pop businesses,
Mm-hmm.
in your community. So that's great. So let's talk about now. Some people have small businesses where they actually have the brick and mortar business that we see on
Yes.
our main streets,
Mhm.
but some
Right.
people actually work from home. And so
Yes.
that brings my next question. We're talking about home-based business now here. How does zoning home businesses out of nice neighborhoods actually lower, not maintain property values in both business districts and residential districts?
I would be willing to bet you have gone shopping for a home where you could legally put out a sign saying you have a business.
Like Bob Van Buren's accounting
Yes.
something. Okay.
Mhm.
Nothing. I'm not an accountant. Nobody call me. I'm not an accountant. As an example. So anybody or Susan's
When we
sewing.
moved, when we moved into Kalispell, like I said, we had a 3-bedroom home that we sold. And it is a little bit of an exaggeration to say we started with 2,000, but not really, because we did have money from the sale of our house that we made a down payment on property outside of city limits. And we had a pretty good sized chunk of money to put on that down payment. We could also say we had a proven history in knowing how to run the type of business we're going to run and could make some reasonable estimates for what we should have for an income. Those proved to be optimistic.
Mm-hmm.
But when we were looking around for houses and we told them how much money we had to put down, you would see the realtor going, oh. And then we
Eyes real big.
oh, yes, you can tell dollar signs. And then we would add, and we wanted to be zoned where we can have a home business. Oh, you don't have near enough money.
Really? Oh man. Can't believe they said that.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned home-based business, and it's like almost the deal's off.
Mm-hmm. Because I needed a
Wow.
lot more money down. And we ended up buying some land contract for deed. And we moved into this place that had been used for working on trucks. It had 2 giant truck bays, a little tiny bit of an office space out front. Our original floor space was about 600 square feet. And we lived in one truck bay, and we had all of our supplies for repairing vacuums and everything in the other truck bay. So I'd say it was about 800 square feet that we're living in, and that's where our first daughter was born.
All right.
And we could live very cheaply. I picked up a few dollars substitute teaching at the school, which is not exactly high paying. And home-based businesses will either stay small and be
Mm-hmm.
enough to support the family, and that's absolutely wonderful. In our case, we kept growing and growing and growing and adding on and adding on and adding on. Finally, we got a trailer in the back of the place, and then we ended up buying a good-sized home in town. And then the business just kept outgrowing what we had, and I now have about a quarter city block in downtown Kalispell. The building itself is about 9,000 square feet, and I bought an extra parking lot behind the building, and I already had parking in front of it. But that initial home business combination was the incubator. And if money were no object, I years ago would have added another story to that building and put in a large apartment. I've been living up there because I like, if I want to just do a couple of hours of work at night, to just be able to walk in the other room, do the work, and then walk back.
Yeah.
And people say, well, don't you hate when you can't get away from the business? No, you close the door to the business, you're facing your family in your living room, you're at home. You just
That
have
brings
a
up,
really nice commute of 10 seconds.
and what you just said kind of answers the question. We got a question from the live audience that I'll bring up on the screen.
Sure.
But I think you kind of answered what you just said, but I'll bring up what electromagnetic frequency says. Can you live in a business, though? And you say yes, right?
Oh, absolutely. That you walk into your store area, you're there. You close the door, you're there. And so, yes, you can. One of the secrets, though, you do not bring your accounting into the living room. You leave the accounting, or if you'd have to, you have a little corner dedicated to it. So, like when you're in that spot, you're working. But you absolutely can. And it's a
Okay.
very comfortable way of living. If it wasn't comfortable, over 90% of our ancestors wouldn't have lived that way.
So basically, don't mix your home life and your business life, even though they might be in the same building.
Right.
Good advice.
Well, so just like Dave Ramsey has some really good advice. And like if you have children working in the family, he described one man that discovered he couldn't work with his son. And he said he actually had two hats in his desk, one labeled boss, one labeled dad. And he said when he had to fire his son, he picked up the boss hat, put it on, and said, "Son, I've got bad news for you." Or correction, he said, he called him by Mr. Name.
Mr. So and so, yeah.
Yes, you're fired. He took that hat off, put on the dad hat. "Son, I've heard that you just lost your job. Do you want to talk about it?" So it can be as simple as switching a hat.
Oh, wow.
But you have to be aware of the role you're playing. But it's really not any different than when you are in a regular office away from home and the kid comes to see what daddy or mommy does at work. The kid has to remember that, yes, that's mommy or that's daddy, but they are at work. You you can't really keep them from doing their job. They can take
Sure.
time out and they'll say, yes, we can talk for a few minutes, but if an account calls, I have to take the account call.
Sure.
It's the same thing. So it's not that big a deal. It just means that instead of wasting an hour driving home from work, in 10 seconds you're there and you can find out immediately if your little girl took her first step that day, or better yet, be there for it.
Sure. Well, let me ask you this. There's probably somebody either watching this live right now or later on after this is done recorded that maybe is thinking about, maybe they're an entrepreneur and they're thinking, I'd like to start my own small business, whether home based or a brick and mortar on Main Street somewhere.
Right.
And they're just not sure where to start. So as you as a small business owner, what would you suggest to that person watching this that wants to take that first step, but they're not sure what that first step is? What would you say to that person?
First, be honest about what's in your bank account. Second, be honest with how cheap can you live. If you're a business owner paying employees, that paycheck has to come first to your employees. If you're the business owner and if for whatever reason there's no income, you have to be able to live really cheap, and you have to ask yourself, is it important to me to be driving the latest car? Like one of the expressions that get totally misunderstood, as far as I'm concerned, is fake it till you make it. People think that means they have to dress like they're already successful, drive the latest car like they're already successful.
Mm-hmm.
If you have to impress people that way, well, some businesses you have to, but frankly, I've never thought much about the brain power of people too easily impressed by such things. So maybe that's my
Mm-hmm.
snobbery showing up there.
No, it's good advice. Yeah.
And so you have to be ask yourself, if there's something I really want to buy and the payments are only $50 a month, do I have the willpower to pretend like I already bought it and put $50 a month in my savings account for say 4 or 5 months? Is that, in fact, that's basic advice I give to a lot of people, even my customers, because the first month you want to make it 45 that you're putting in. That's a month that extra payment could have downed your business.
True.
So are you willing to live cheap so you can later on live better? Um, so if you are capable of delayed gratification, then you have the potential to be a small business owner. People push thinking out. That's where, to me, fake it till you make it. I'm very lucky. I had a mother that if my parents couldn't afford something, I never once heard the excuse, we don't have the money. Even though 90% of the time, when I wanted something I couldn't have, the reason was, we don't have the money. They always came up with another reason. And basically, I was trained, if you had $1 million in the bank, would you still want to spend some of that million on such a certain item?
Mm-hmm.
And if you say, yeah, really wouldn't be that important to me, I think there's something else I might like better. To me, that is part of faking it till you make it. That is the important part. You make the decision on the merits, total merits of something, if you would really want it or not. And I think, okay, to give an example of my mom's being like that,
Mm-hmm.
when I was in grade school, one year all my friends went to camp and I wanted to go to camp. They made it sound really cool. My mother, who knew I wanted to go, knew it had been a good camp for my personality, looked me straight in the eye and said, you know, Fran, some parents need a break from their children, but you are such a wonderful child and I'd miss you so much. I just can't imagine sending you away to camp.
Oh, that's nice.
And I believed it for years.
Uh-huh.
They flat out did not have the money.
Wow, that's a good way to put it, though. I mean, yeah, it melts my heart even. So yeah, that's all.
But
That's a great
so,
story.
do you have the ability to have delayed gratification, and do you know how to decide, besides money, whether or not you should have something? And then, are you willing to make less money because the decisions are yours than if you made more money right now working for somebody else? And if deep down inside you, you would rather starve making your own mistakes than working for somebody else, then you better be self employed. And you'll probably end up growing and eventually hiring people.
Your own boss, yeah.
Yes. But how important is that to you? You have to know yourself.
In other words, you have to make
Yes.
a little bit of sacrifices. You can't
Right.
just, it's not going to be at the end of the rainbow, the pot of
Right.
gold. So
But
yeah.
that gets to another thing. The most common reason highly educated people who are ambitious, who do want to be responsible for their own mistakes, take the pain of making a mistake, take the full benefit of doing the right decision. But they say, I don't want to be self-employed. I don't want to start my own business because it is too scary. I lack the security of the paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a secret book, tackles
Bring that
that
up
whole
again.
question in the second chapter.
I'll bring that up again. Here's the book again,
Yes,
ladies and gentlemen. Okay, go ahead, Fran.
yes. And the title of the second chapter is
I highly encourage
Life,
everyone to buy this book too. Okay, go ahead, Fran.
and it's available online. And oh, this one is now available as an audiobook. So
All
you can
right.
get an audio
Good.
recording of it and listen to it while you have that drive that's longer than 10 minutes to get to work.
Yep.
But the second chapter is called Life with Blinders Off. And the comparison I make is that a wild horse running wild and free, so responsible for itself, it's not put in a barn. He knows if there's going to be a mountain lion sneaking up on him. He knows if there's strange movement in the bushes. He responds to the real world. Even well trained horses, if a gust of wind blew a bunch of leaves in front of it, or there was a sudden kid movement off to the side, they would bolt. It put everybody in danger.
Mm-hmm.
So, what uh, buggy drivers did and still do to this day was put blinders on the side of the horse.
Mm-hmm.
The horse could not see any danger on either side. He could only see the safe road ahead.
The destination. Yeah.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
the buggy driver could see if there was danger coming, but not the horse. Employees, especially employees of big corporations, they're draft horses with the blinders on. They have taken their most important economic resource, their ability to earn a paycheck. They have put that financial resource in the hands of somebody else. They put it in that other person's basket. They have not a clue how well that business is or is not being managed. Like 2007, when we had all that money coming in,
Mm-hmm.
and my thyroid levels were down to nothing. And by the way, one of the symptoms of a low thyroid is being stupid. And most of the time I was too easily swayed.
Mm-hmm.
So the people that were relying on me, their faith was misplaced. And think of how many big corporations end up having to go through bankruptcy or something, and all the people working for them thought, well, we thought we had a good job.
It's over. Or a
Or
merger even, but they
or
merge.
the Arthur Andersons of the world, the people go, wow, that company is so big, it's going to last forever.
Enron. Yeah.
Enron, yes, another example. It's going to so big, it's going to last forever. Your job is secure as the employees with their blinders on go to work each day
And then
and
it
then find
crashes.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
you have to be willing to be the wild horse, willing to see the dangers for yourself. And it's not that the dangers of being employed don't exist, it's that the employed are blind. They have their blinders on.
Mm-hmm.
So either you're the buggy driver or you're the draft horse. The other
Good
thing to
advice.
consider is that when most people go into business for themselves, they tend to not know how to price things and they don't know how to price themselves. Or if
Mm-hmm.
they're going like most self-employed is because they have a skill they're good at.
Mm-hmm.
People that are good, very good at a skill tend to not value that skill because it's just so natural to them.
Mm.
And they don't stop to think that other people don't have it or don't have the time for it.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that is of value. And they will either go in and try to overvalue what they're offering, like some of those fancy restaurants that would come into Montana and think they could get away with $100 a plate dinners, which there's a couple restaurants like that here, but they're not going to survive.
Uh-huh.
But the most common mistake they make is undervalue themselves. That they're thinking in terms of this is how many dollars per hour I should used to make, that's how many dollars an hour I should make now. and they think in terms of an hourly employee. You can't do that. You have to think in terms of your skill set and what your skill is worth, and you have to be willing to charge what you are worth. As an employee, you are selling your labor wholesale to your employer. Your employer turns around and sells it retail to the customer. When you are self employed, you should not be selling your labor to the customer wholesale. You should be selling it for every bit as much or more money than your employer would have sold it.
Absolutely.
You are now in a position where you should sell more. And probably one of the most extreme examples of that I ever heard, and I am going to have to very quickly look this one up because one of my honest mistakes or weaknesses, I do not always remember names well, 53. But I think this is possibly one of the most extreme examples of somebody undervaluing what they are worth. And I quoted this directly from Link magazine. It was about a man named Dr. James Benson, who died very wealthy. He was working in the space industries because he loved outer space, but he started out as just an ordinary computer programmer.
Mm-hmm.
And this quote has always stayed with me. In 1983, he co-founded CompuSearch, which produced software. Benson had no luck selling his program until a prospect explained that the $200 software seemed too inexpensive to do what it claimed. He raised the price to $2,500 and it started to sell like hotcakes.
Wow. But people think it's that value now that the price is higher.
Right.
Wow.
And before that, I'm sure everybody said, gee, we just can't afford $200 right now. And somebody finally told him point blank, there's no way that could be any good. We've tried cheap software. We're staying with the good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so, out of sheer desperation, okay, I'm going to ask the $2,500 for the next guy. Nothing to lose. I'm going broke anyway. And he sells it. Can you imagine his shock?
Isn't that amazing how that works? Wow.
Mm-hmm. And in my case, a lot of cleaning ladies buy stuff at my store. And I've had to explain to a lot of them that they will get a better quality clientele and be paid better if they raise their rates.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%.
That cheap is not a compliment.
That's true. You get what you pay for, as the old adage. Yeah.
Yes. And my mother told me when I was in high school, if somebody calls you cheap, do not feel complimented. And guess what? The advice is still true.
True.
Mama knew best.
Absolutely. Well, hey, we talked about your one book, but let's talk about the other book that you've written that's just as good. Tell us a bit about this one. Ladies and gentlemen, here's another book that Fran has written. It's called Live Abundantly, 50 Business Lessons from the Bible. So you're connecting some stuff from the Bible to the business. How does that work? Can you give us some examples?
One of the best, there are two Bible stories that are really, really good for learning about the important things for business.
Mm-hmm.
There is nothing more important for business than your basic attitude, your basic faith that things will get better, things will average out. Faith that if you just keep working harder, no matter how many times you have to start over, that if you start a small business and it fails, you see yourself not as having failed, but as having learned a lesson and more knowledge about business, about yourself, than what somebody spending $100,000 going to Harvard will ever learn.
It's a character building too.
Very much a character building. Like one person liked to say, he never wanted to do any business deals with somebody who had not failed at least once. Because until somebody's failed, you don't know what they're made of. You're either the type that rolls over and plays dead, or you're the type that's willing to get up and start again. It is a fact that people who attend a church, mosque, or synagogue on a regular basis, on the average, and averages have lots of exceptions, but this is on the average, a trend, tend to do better in business than those who do not. And I think part
Good
of it
advice.
is that if you attend a church on a regular basis, what you are practicing is faith. And if you do not have faith, I don't care how much money you have, you will fail eventually at business because someday something is going to happen. Your fault, nobody's fault. Major snowstorms just wipe out everything. A drought destroys everything. Uh, a competitor spreads on false rumors about you. Something is going to happen. Life is not fair. Anybody who expects life to be fair had better get out of kindergarten.
Yep, that's true. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because most of us, kindergarten is our first example of life is not fair. And so you have to have faith that even if you fail at this, it enables you to succeed at something else. And very few things illustrate that better than the story of Joseph. That Joseph starts out favorite son. And he
Mm-hmm.
honestly, deep down, believes that everybody loves him just as much as his daddy does. His
Mm-hmm.
brothers love him because every time daddy's around, they stress, "Oh, yes, little Joseph, you're so cute. We just love you." And
Yeah.
of course, he has those dreams, and they occasionally complain about that. But when Joseph is sent off by himself to go check on his brothers, he's not afraid of them. They love him. First time the brothers get him alone, away from daddy, they sell him into slavery.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Joseph's going, "I thought they loved me." And it would have been perfectly logical for him to go, "Woe is me." And I'm sure he had more than a little of that on his way
Mm-hmm.
to Egypt.
I'm the victim.
Yes.
Yeah.
But instead, he had been taught he was to love God, and God, in using God's own standards, which are a complete mystery to us, things eventually work out one way or the other. And he
Absolutely.
probably, and from what we see of his personality in the future, he probably had that long walk, and it would have been a very long walk, thinking about why didn't I know my brothers didn't like me? What made them not like me? And somewhere along that walk, I think he realized, oh my goodness, the oldest firstborn son is supposed to be the most treasured. And instead, he was the most despised because he had the wrong mommy.
Mm-hmm.
I bet my brothers always hated me for that alone. And he could go through it and he saw where his actions had inspired that treatment. And then when he was bought as a slave, the Bible's very definite that he was originally treated like any other new slave. But everything he did to the best of his ability
Yep.
because Joseph saw every little thing he did, no matter how menial, as the job he did as a reflection of his glory to God. That he doing even the worst, yuckiest job to the best of his ability was a way of praising God.
That's a great story.
And so he ended up being the head of that household, and eventually he rules, becomes second in command in all Egypt, the equivalent of a multi-billionaire today, only with a whole lot more power than any modern leader has. Because we don't know what a dictatorial power is. You're second in command of Pharaoh. If somebody looks at you cross-eyed, if you want to have him killed, you can. I mean, that guy had power. He had wealth available to him. He ended up saving his whole family. And when they moved back to Egypt and the whole family was there, after dad died, the brothers go to him and they're begging for their lives because they're sure the only reason they're still alive is because he didn't want to kill them in front of their dad. And he
Mm-hmm.
said, "No, what you meant for evil, God meant for good. You're going to live. You're still my honored brothers."
I
And
think another lesson there is like you talking about how the Bible stories can tie into your businesses.
Mhm.
What I can get out of that, I mean, there's a lot of lessons there, but my lesson is what you kind of said at the beginning. You can't be a successful business owner or even a successful employee if you're going to be constantly playing the victim.
absolutely. nowhere in the Bible are victims honored.
That's true. Hmm.
Which the other book that anyone who wants to be in business should read is the book of Job. Now, I do recommend reading the first 2 pages and the last 2 pages because the end is just a whole bunch of talk that you really have to grit your teeth to get through.
Hmm. The book of Job
But
is a very good book too in the Old Testament.
yes, and in that one, if anybody had a right to complain, it was Job. And when I learned about that story in Sunday school, and at the end, when God restores Job's wealth in Sunday school, I always had the impression that God went, boing, you're rich again. But it wasn't like that. God turned to Job's friends, who had been spending all those pages going, yak, 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 giving their
Hmm.
advice and their explanations and
Sure.
on and on and on.
Hmm.
That's got to have been one of his punishments, was listening to these guys. And he told each of his friends, okay, lend Job some money so he can go back in business. In other words, if you're really a friend of his, you know that this guy knows how to run business, he has his health back, shut up and lend him some money, help him out, help him do a better job. And then Job took that investment money and grew it. He was able to pay back his friends, and
Hmm.
he ended up wealthier than before.
There's a lesson there too.
But
Yeah.
a lot of hard work went into it. And so if your friend needs help, you don't just go, oh, if you hadn't made those mistakes. No, you shut up and you help them.
Help them. Absolutely. There's, yeah, great lessons there. And let me show you that book again. I'm going to show some more books, ladies and gentlemen, that Fran has written. I mean, and let me. You kind of touched on it a little bit, Fran. But these books, say that somebody wants to buy this book, or even this book, or other books I'm going to show in a minute. Where would they go to buy your books? Where would they look?
They're all available on Amazon.
Amazon.
And you can look up Effie Tabor or Fran Tabor, and that should eventually get you to my author's page. Live Abundantly. I know a lot more about titling books now than I did when I did either one of those titles.
That's a good title.
You would have to do Live Abundantly 50 Business Lessons from the Bible and include the 50. And the Shhhh is a secret. Note that there are 4 H's. There turns out there's a lot of books with titles similar to that. But
Hmm.
Go Shhhh is a secret plus Tabor, Tabor.
Okay.
And
So
I discovered I thought Tabor's a relatively unknown name. There's some other Fran Tabors out there. One is an actress. I'm not an
really.
actress. Yeah. Yes. But, uh, and like I said, The Shhhh is a Secret is available as an audiobook.
It is. Okay, that's a good one. You can
Yes.
listen to it in the car
And
then. Uh,
in fact, I got a professional person to read the audiobook who, unlike me, knows how to say all of his words correctly.
can
I
enunciate, all right? Well, you enunciate perfectly. There's nothing wrong with your voice.
Thank you very much. However, I'm like a lot of people who I was a bookworm as a child. I've always loved learning. And by the way, that's net. You really do have to love learning if you're going to be self employed.
Absolutely.
You don't have to necessarily like to learn about everything like I do, but for whatever your field is, you have to be continuously learning.
Sure.
But I would say over half of my vocabulary is visual only, and it's amazing how many English words are not pronounced the way I would have pronounced them.
Hey, I'm with you in that boat. I think we share that logic there. Uh,
And the French ways use way too many letters.
Absolutely. In addition to your business books, you've written some other books. Kind of give us a lowdown of this, and I guess these are probably available on Amazon too. Tell us about this book, ladies and gentlemen. In case it's called "To Own Two Sons." So, kind of give us a synopsis about that. Why don't you tantalize us a little bit?
To Own Two Sons is a first contact sci-fi, and
Science fiction. I like science
science
fiction.
fiction is what's called epic science fiction, 100,000 words. And one of the things I really like thinking about is what will happen if we meet another intelligent species
Oh, I like that
from
synopsis.
yes, from another planet. And all of almost all of the stories that I have read and seen, when if aliens come to Earth, they already know that we're here. They've been watching our radio broadcasts and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked myself, well, what if they are not expecting us? And why wouldn't they be expecting us? And at the same time,
Interesting.
I was asking myself those questions. The idea of a centaur fascinated me. What would it take for a four-legged animal to develop arms, like a horse-man combination? Could that be on our planet? And uh, life that goes through different metamorphoses, like the most famous one, of course, is caterpillar to butterfly. But there's a lot of life forms on Earth, like sponges that are free floating in the plankton. They end up
Right.
hooked on a rock. That their adult form and their juvenile forms don't even remotely resemble each other. And all these light ideas went ahead and started percolating in my weird little brain. And the basic premise of this is that we, at this place in the year 100 years from now, and the first manned spaceship to go beyond the orbit of Neptune, and it is sent out to explore the Kuiper Belt deliberately. And by
Oh,
the way, when
wow.
I was writing for this, I honestly thought it was called Cooper Belt because it's Kuiper.
That's how I'd
And when I
say it.
started
Yeah.
watching podcasts and they're talking about the Kuiper Belt, I said, well, that sounds like the Cooper Belt. Oh, it is Kuiper. And out there by Pluto, they discover a big, giant alien spaceship that is drifting. Well, at first it looks like it's just coming into the system, and they think it's another interstellar thing because it's coming in so fast, but it's huge. And then it suddenly, with impossible rapidity, stops, slows down, and goes into a stable orbit. And it
Oh,
does this with a
interesting.
rapidity that the forces inside should have just smashed anything that was in there against the walls. I mean,
Wow.
nothing should have been able to take that acceleration.
Very
And
interesting.
our scientists, explorers, and this small unmanned ship end up, in the details of the story, end up going on board that spaceship, and they think it is not inhabited. Well, unknown to them, it is inhabited by a very large creature that, by accident, as an accident, ends up engulfing and eating one of their members,
Ouch.
which is it's explained in the story.
Okay, and is this something that is this
Yeah,
another book they can get on Amazon
yes,
if they want
but
to?
he was not expecting to find humans. He is there to own Earth for this because he needs to complete a ritual for the ownership of our solar system, and the survival of his entire clan depends on his completing that. Otherwise, his whole clan will die.
Sounds like a very interesting
But
story.
they are from on the other side of the galaxy, and what I've postulated is that an ancestor of his discovered our solar system. It was exactly right for his people, but their faster than light uh, method of travel died. They all knew on board that they were going to die. So their ship on autopilot took 50,000 years to get to the home planet, and everybody on board had been long dead, but all the ownership papers were there for this solar system.
Wow.
And so his family can own it if he can complete the ritual. Otherwise, his family is on the verge of being driven extinct by the other rival clans.
Oh, that sounds like
But
an
he is
interesting
relying
book.
on information that is 50,000 years old. And I have just only certain little areas where you can go faster than light, and other places you can't go faster than light. And so he is arriving expecting to find Ice Age Earth full of mammoths and things like that. And instead, when he wakes up, here's humans running all the ice, the all the big ice
Yeah.
ages, glaciers are gone, and humans are all over the solar system. and that would make ownership for his clan impossible unless he can eliminate humans. And so he wants to figure out it would be better to try to make a partnership with the humans or just to eliminate them, and then he runs into other problems doing that. But he ends up pretending, oh yeah, we knew all along that you were here. And so the
Interesting.
relationship starts out on a thing of deception,
Okay.
and the human leader ends up saving the alien's family and saving Earth, and Earth will never know the human leader had saved their lives.
Wow. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you are very intrigued by this, I highly recommend look up Two Own Two Sons, also by Fran Tabor. If you like science fiction, this sounds like the book for you. But you've also got another book out of another genre that I would love to talk about. Tell us more about this book called Eagle Rock. That almost looks like me, and it's not me, ladies and gentlemen. That guy's better looking than me. So.
That's actually a picture of my brother.
That's your brother in the book. Okay.
Yes. And when that picture was taken, he was a buffalo rancher.
Okay.
And that is, in the scene in the background is out near a place called Kyla, Montana. And it is a story of a gal who is a foo-foo veterinarian in Beverly Hills, California. She specializes in taking care of the world's most pampered pets who need therapy and the whole bit.
Mm-hmm.
But her brother fell in love with Montana, started a buffalo ranch, and then apparently died in a farm-related accident.
Mm-hmm.
So she goes there to get rid of the brother's ranch and get back home to civilized California as soon as she could. But then, when she's visiting the ranch, this handsome young Indian brave, you don't call them Indian braves nowadays, but anyway, a handsome young Indian about her age is there to deliver some buffalo calves that her brother had ordered because her brother was going to go into buffalo ranching. And she looks into the eyes of a buffalo calf and sees something that she has never seen before and realizes she's going to stay in Montana and stay on the Eagle Rock Ranch. And then later she discovers that her brother's death was not an accident, it was murder, and the murderer is now after her for possession of Eagle Rock.
That sounds like a very interesting story. So, so you write different genres. Obviously, you wrote science fiction. Now you've written this one. You've written businesses. So, man, you're multi-talented.
I am intellectually versatile, which is essential for being a small business survivor.
Intellectually virtual. I like that. I have to remember. I'm not, but I like that comment.
I think you are more versatile than you think.
So,
In fact, I will guarantee it, or you wouldn't be doing a podcast.
I'm loving every second of it. Well, Fran, I love you being on the show. It's been a great learning experience. My audience has had got comments too. So, but I do want to say one more time, ladies and gentlemen, in case you're just tuned in, if it's live and you're just tuning in, if you really want some great business advice and you're not sure where to start businesses, or maybe you're doubting yourself, or maybe you're not sure where to start, go to Amazon, look up Fran Tabor's book here. For one, this is one of many. Shh, it's a secret, but it's really not a secret. So, but at least she'll give you some good business tips. If you like that one, then you will also definitely like this one. Live Abundantly, 50 Business Lessons from the Bible. She gave 2 good examples of many that's in this book. And so, and like I said, the book, if you are familiar with the book of Job and knowing what he went through, this might be a good, let me point to it, a good companion piece to that. So, man, they'll give you the hope and erase some of your self-doubts about business. But if you're a sci-fi lover like I am, then this will be right up your alley. To Own Two Sons. That's very, very, very interesting. And I like it because it's not just at a quote-unquote galaxy far, far away. It's here in our galaxy. So that's what's intriguing to me about this. And, of course, if you like Eagle Rock and the scenario that she gave about this will be a good book for you as well. So, Fran, you are multi-talented. and I hope to see even more books. I'm going to ask you this: do you plan on writing more books of whatever genre?
I've recently finished a book called The Mobsters,
The
and
mobsters.
it's about two gals that have a cleaning business. As two sisters. The older sister, the night her son was born, her husband was killed. Her husband and parents were killed by
Hmm.
a drunk driver. And her sister, who at that point in time was still in high school, had to give her news that her husband would never show up to see their new baby son. They have a very
Hmm.
tiny home that is the legacy from that she and her husband had bought when they were first married, and she is trying to survive in it. And they have their own little cleaning business called the Mobsters, and just have a dreadful time making ends meet.
When do you see a release date on that? When do you think there might be released?
Um, I'm going to try to get it out in draft to digital within a couple of months. But she
That's
finally
good.
gets a high paying client. They finally get a good man in their life, which both sisters think is really hot. And you would think, well, that's going to be the conflict. Uh-uh. The high paying client is the mob, and those high paying jobs are cleaning up murder sites, and they don't know it. And the new hot boyfriend is FBI undercover, and they're caught between the two of them when the bullets start flying, and they're only armed with their mops.
Wow, that's very imaginative, very interesting. You know what? And if anybody else is watching this from Hollywood, that would make an excellent Hollywood script. Hint, 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 hint. That wasn't too subtle, was it? But I mean every word of it. So, 20th Century Fox, Warner Brothers, MGM, whatever movie company or Touchstone, right here. Well, Fran, I'm very honored you were here tonight. Share some of your business advice. You know, we are all, and I'm speaking about myself, we all have self doubts every once in a while.
Mhm.
And so you've kind of encouraged, that. And again, take the blinders off. Look at the big picture. And I got that. And again, another point that I got from you in this interview is don't play the victim. If you're, as long as
Absolutely.
if you're going to play victim, you're never going to succeed. So, you know, dust yourself off proverbially and let's move on, right, Fran?
Right.
Okay. Well, Fran, again, I appreciate you coming on. And ladies and gentlemen, again, look at the books that she wrote. Go to Amazon.com. They've got some very good expertise advice there. So, Fran, again, welcome and thank you for coming to the Van Buren Variety Show. And we wish you the best of luck. And we'd love to have you back on the program sometime.
I think it would be an absolute blast. And if I come on again, I will have my cowboy hat.
That's
I
hey,
have a
matching
beautiful
set.
hats and compliments of my buffalo ranching brother.
Thank you, Fran. Have a great evening.
Thank you very much. It's been a blast.
And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it all tonight for the Van Buren Variety Show. It seems like 1 hour just goes by so fast, but it's always been a lot of fun to hear people's lives, to hear their professions, and especially get their advice, like we got from Fran tonight. So, as always, reminder: if you like this show, if you like this video, make sure you like this video. And if you haven't already subscribed to Van Buren Variety, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and that way you'll get updates to see what programs are coming up, what guests are coming up, and you can also see a history of the past shows if you're interested. So, love for you to do that. Remember, like and subscribe to Van Buren Variety. And just as a public service announcement, I mentioned it last week. I want to say some appreciation to those that are simulcasting Van Buren Variety on their channel. That's not going to last too much longer. So if you're not watching this on Van Buren Variety, it will stop probably by next week. So if you haven't subscribed to Van Buren Variety, come over here, jump over here and subscribe, and then you can watch it on my channel. But to those that are allowing me to simulcast on their channel, I really do appreciate it. I appreciate the extra exposure and the promotion. So I don't plan on doing that forever. So make sure you come to Van Buren Variety. Would love to continue the party with us over here. So that's all for me tonight. Bob Van Buren. I will be back next week. And I hope you all have a great evening, everyone. Good night.